All right, we are live. So, welcome everyone. This is the Anarchy debate between Mike Cantin and Justin Pedini.
How you
So,
doing?
we are going to make sure we are public and we will start the conversation. So, just to be clear, both of you are real, right? None of you are a simulation or a robot with artificial consciousness. I just want to make
I'm
sure.
I'm still trying to figure that out. Actually, I did I did bleed recently though, so unless you're going with the westward thing, yeah, I think we're okay.
The Westworld thing, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you've seen that show. It's a good one. Okay, so we're here to talk about government. So first, let's start with introductions. Justin, you start. Who are you? What do you think about government? Then we'll go on to Mike.
Well, I'm just Justin Pedini of Earth. I don't really like to specifically go. I'm from this country to that country, or I'm Italian, or this or that. I'm just kind of like a lost soul wandering the cosmos, trying to figure out what reality is. And I think government is the greatest bane that has ever been placed upon humanity. And I think everyone who believes in government is basically stupid in a nutshell. So that's my intro.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
Mike, what's your position? Who are you, and what's your take on this issue?
So first off, my name is not Mike. That's just a fake name. I don't put all my information on Facebook. And I'm not for or against government in general. That makes no sense to anybody with half a brain.
Okay.
Okay,
It's
so you don't.
It's nuanced. It's nuanced. It depends.
Okay, so you don't support government, but you don't oppose it either. So let's go with an explanation for that. In what cases would you support the government?
External costs, indivisibilities, roads, military protection. It will be too expensive for everybody to afford their own private security. It's not economically. Some things government does better than private industry, depending on who has to pay and who gets the benefit.
Okay, so you said roads, military, and private defense. So let's start with the first one. I see you're driving on a road right now, so this is practical. I think we should start there. So you mentioned it, you brought it up. Justin, what's your take? Do we need government for roads, and would Mike be able to drive otherwise?
No, I would suggest that actually the government is preventing actually decent and good roads, because if you look at other places in the world, such as like maybe like ancient Rome or other places in Europe, they haven't had to repave their roads in over 500 years. Yet for some reason with our modern government, they just keep confusing to put down the wrong type of materials and stuff, and they keep breaking every time it snows. I mean, what's more sensitive to snow than the roads are? It's kind of pure pathetic. So I would suggest that government is actually trying to keep us in a state of slavery by putting down this like really soft pussy material that gets destroyed. So I would actually suggest that it's the fault of the government that the roads are the way that they are. You know, I mean, like, again, why can't we just use the stones that they've used that they never need to repave over again ever? You know.
All right, Mike, what do you? Or if your name's not Mike, can we call you Mike? Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course the government's
what's
not.
your take?
Of course the government's not 100% efficient. If it was, it would be the only thing in the world that's 100% accurate or efficient.
Okay, so the government isn't efficient, is your argument?
There's certain things that government should do, certain things that it should not do. Privatizing the road will not change the underlying scarcity of the materials in the slightest.
It's ridiculous. Why?
Because the cost of anything is the value of its cost of anything is the value in its alternative uses.
But stone exists.
Society anything.
But reality has created stone that we're surrounded by. Why can't we just use stone?
Because division of labor. Some people don't know how to build a road. They make candlesticks for a living.
Okay.
That doesn't answer what I actually asked, though.
Well, what if we privatize the roads? So let's say we take it from the public sector and bring it to the private sector, right? So what would you see as the issue with that, Mike? And any issues you see with that? I want to see what Justin has to say about them. Do you think it would be like everywhere's a toll road and you have to pay wherever you go? Would that be the issue?
Some people get higher prices depending on what connections they have with the people who own the road. Doesn't make any sense at all. Everybody has equal access to the road. Everybody has equal access to military defense. Privatizing it will not change the underlying scarcity.
What's scarce? Wait, be specific. Can I just do my thing? Was that okay? Or
Yeah, go ahead. You can respond to that, Justin.
thank you. What is this scarcity that you talk about? There's unlimited amounts of everything on Earth. People keep being born. The world, the planet keeps rejuvenating oil. There's unlimited resources. Maybe for a limited, finite amount of time, we could possibly run out of oil, but it's naturally produced by nature. So there's an infinite amount of everything. What are you talking about?
Some things should be handled by the private sector. Some things should not. Some things.
Well, okay. Why shouldn't we be able to
Like-
voluntarily choose who builds our roads? Because apparently the people that the government are hiring and the materials they're using are not up to par. Now, I'm not blaming the individuals. I respect a lot of the people that help build the roads. However, they're not allowed to use material that doesn't just get destroyed when it snows. So why can't we do that? Why can't we privatize that? What's the problem there?
No matter what you do, there's never enough to satisfy everyone completely. There's scarcity.
That doesn't answer what I asked.
Privatizing the roads will not change the underlying scarcity at all. That just means
Scarcity
that
of
you
what?
pay a
Scarcity of
corporation
what?
instead of a so-called state. The
Scarcity
labor,
of
the
what?
resources that go into building the labor and resources that go into making public infrastructure.
What resources are limited that we are going to run out of that we can't use for the roads? If you want to jump in.
Labor.
What does that mean? So wait a minute. We're going to run out of labor. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the people, because there's no government, there's less people because government's the biggest killer in all of history. So if anything, there would be more people if the government were involved.
All right, let's jump onto that topic. I think we've hit roads enough. So government being the biggest killer. Mike, government's made up of people, right? And the justification for government is that people might harm other people with violence. But don't you think that giving an institution the power to commit violence isn't really the answer to violent people, because it kind of ensures violence is perpetuated?
Are you asking me or Justin?
I'm asking you.
I'll take it if he wants, but
Violence will always exist. Only the dead have seen the end of war. You can't get rid of violence. That's the reason war exists, because there's not one single truth, moral objective. There are different people who have different opinions. And
so
they each have their own truth, which means there is no truth. It all is subjective. It's not objective. It depends on your perspective.
Oh, no. Oh,
Can I
no.
go?
You just
Really?
said objective and subjective. Okay.
Can I go?
Justin,
Can I go?
feel free. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so there's no truth, huh? Okay, so let me ask you, if we were on top of a building and I said, truth doesn't exist, jump off. You could just make up whatever you want. Would you or would you not fall?
That doesn't do justice to the word truth. That just means
I'm not asking
you
for
took
justice
one
for truth. I'm just
option.
asking if truth exists.
So
You want more?
that's
You want
not a truth. It's a simple yes/no question. It doesn't do justice to the word truth. 2
Okay,
plus 2
so
equals
what are you
4.
talking about?
That's not a truth. That's a
false?
sum.
All right, Mike.
It's a sum of what?
Mike, feel free
sorry.
to explain what you mean by subjectivity in terms of truth. Let's get a steel man of your argument.
Babe, could you roll me a cigarette when you get a chance? Thank you. Something's getting smoked, I'll tell you that. Sorry. So wait, is he answering?
Wait. Yeah, Mike, I want to hear your full definition of subjective truth in relation to this topic.
Ooh, objective morality, my favorite.
think he just has to put it in park first.
Well, if he didn't put it in park and would the car keep rolling, is that true or is that false? How could you say truth doesn't exist? Like,
yeah. What do you mean?
It exists, but there's two parts of the truth.
What
There's
are the
not
two
one
parts of the
objective
truth?
truth. That lacks nuance.
Well, that's just a word that sounds nice. Like,
Just because 2 + 2 = 4 doesn't mean that everything is objective.
I never said everything is objective. Like, I like chocolate better than vanilla. That's not objective. That's subjective. However, like knifing up 6 grandmothers walking out of a supermarket is objectively wrong, and I can prove that, as I have multiple times on the internet. So,
okay, take that claim apart, Mike. Why do you think that Justin's right when it comes to murder of innocent people being objectively wrong? Do you think that fits into your domain of subjectivity?
That's obviously wrong, and it's an injustice to the word truth. I've already explained it.
No, you haven't.
They're good and bad. Some things are obviously wrong. That doesn't,
Okay, so can I just
error
is. Thank you, Ben.
It's easy to recognize error. It's easy to recognize error, but that has nothing to do with truth.
Well, what does have to do with truth? What's the truth? Like, explain to me what you think truth is.
There is no truth.
There is no truth. Really?
That's why we have democracy. That's why there's no truth. On questions such as, is government good or bad? There's no truth because it lacks nuance. It depends. It's not like the government is bad because of the government. If anything's wrong with the government, it's the politicians. And if there's anything wrong with the politicians, it's the voters.
Really?
It's not.
Okay, Isaac, can I do my thing? Is that okay? I've never debated with him. Okay, so you said that there's no such thing as objective truth. So, Mike, my question for you is, can you give me a scenario where rape would be the moral and right thing to do? I got tons, but that's one of my favorites.
I'm sorry, what was the question? Morally right thing to do?
Yeah, okay, so you're telling me that there is no truth and there is no such thing as objective morality. So if morality is subjective, as you're saying, can you give me a scenario where, raping, say, a woman would be the right moral thing to do?
Like the death penalty. Is that wrong or right? It depends how bad the crime was. That's why the Constitution says.
But I could agree to that, but at the
Constitution
same time,
is not specific.
Okay. All right. Let's interject real quick. What about the NAP? What do you think? Let's start with Justin this time. Justin, what do you think about the NAP? Do you think it's potentially a baseline for understanding when certain actions are moral or immoral? And then we'll see what Mike has to say in response.
Right. Well, it seems that Mike believes that the NAP is more like a FAP or something like that, to be jerked off. But the fact of the matter is, as simple as this is that, okay, right and wrong are very simple. If you initiate violence, the difference between force and violence is this, okay? I used to work out. I'm getting back into it now. I'm using force when I bench press. It's not violence, okay? The reason that is because violence is when you violate someone's natural rights. That's why the word violence is in the word violate, because you have inherent natural rights that are objective, all right? It's not up to other people because they write stuff down on paper to decide what's morally right and wrong. It just is. Writing it down on paper changes nothing.
Mike?
Is it morally right for 9 billion people to come to our country and without any rules or standards, or is it morally right to take away
that's more people than actually
police?
That's more people than actually exist. You know, there aren't 9 billion people on the planet, so I'm not sure how they would do that.
7.5 billion. Let's go with that number.
Yeah, and they'd all fit in Texas, and no, that wouldn't be immoral. Why would that be immoral?
Because they don't learn our traditions. They're foreign, religious, crazy people out there. People are different, and those differences have consequences.
We have morally crazed religious people in this country. It's not just elsewhere.
Okay. All right, Mike, I have a question for you. Explain your Sargon comment. I've seen you post it in multiple different areas, and I think it's at least interesting enough to discuss. So, can you familiarize our audience?
Let me refresh my memory.
Sargon of Akkad, I think.
Government is not good or bad because people are different.
Okay.
I don't remember that comment, but I don't remember that comment. But
I'm pretty sure the comment said something along the lines of government power is not good or bad. It depends on the person wielding the power and what they do with that power.
Oh yeah, it's like a gun. Guns aren't good or bad. It depends who holds the gun. Same thing with government. It's not good or bad. It depends on the people running it. And so you don't get rid of limited. You don't put it this way. You don't get rid of limited form government because of politicians. That's what they want you to do.
Can I just so does rate change depending on who does it, or is it always wrong?
It's always wrong, but it's not the same thing as theft or tax.
So it actually is theft. It's the theft of the ability for someone to choose. But anyway, so then you agree it's objectively wrong then, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so therefore that's your foundation.
But that's not
objective morality.
That doesn't do justice to the word truth, because truth.
I'm not trying to do justice to it. I'm just
like I said earlier. Everybody is different. They have their own opinions. They have their own truths, and consequently, there can be no truth. That was a Nietzsche quote.
Yeah, well, I'm smarter than Nietzsche. How's that?
Oh, well, okay.
Nietzsche was wrong.
I have a question for Justin then.
All our knowledge has its origin in our perceptions. So you can't say government is good or bad just because you watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos and social media with cops. You don't get rid of the government because they throw your dog in a cage and shoot your neighbor. You know, that's just...
Well, you don't?
Those are exceptions. It's not the rule.
Okay,
I
Justin.
Know, that is, yeah.
You can't get rid of war. Nobody's seen the end of war ever.
Justin, what do you think about the comparison between government violence and gun violence? Because to be fair, on the surface, it seems to make sense. If you have a gun, you can do something good with it, or you can do something bad with it. If you have government power, it seems like the same thing could correlate. So I want to see how you distinct between the two.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, for one, what's it called? A gun has pretty much one use, and that is to project something. That's all. It can change. You can change your uses for that. Government, from its etymological roots, literally translates to mind control. Mike, would you suggest that mind control is objectively wrong?
That's government does not mean mind control.
Actually, wait, no, actually, yes, it does.
Government is
incorrect. I actually had an English major that teaches English all over the world that I'm personally friends with that I could link you to. Okay, he's in Japan right now teaching English. He tried to debunk that because when I broke that down to him, he was quite angry about it. And on 2 occasions, he actually tried in front of me to disprove that breakdown, and both times he admitted that that is actually what it means. So there you go.
The root, your buddy's full of shit. He watched too much YouTube. The root of government is govern. Meant is how you end words. But
gubernari,
any other word that ends with meant.
Gubernari in Latin means to control.
Supplement.
Okay, so.
Well, yeah, that means to govern. Yeah, it means you're getting the good people to govern the bad people. So govern means govern. Meant is how you end words, like all the words that end with meant.
Okay, but the etymology doesn't really matter, right? We're talking about whether or not government violence is always wrong.
Okay, so let me explain. Okay, it's always wrong to initiate violence every time, no matter what the situation, because if someone did something to break your natural rights, you wouldn't be being violent. You would be using defensive force to stop or put down that attack. So the fact is, what government does is issue laws or threats, because that's actually what a law is. It's just a euphemism for it. And they basically are threatening to be violent with you if you don't listen to their decrees. So again, that's not the same thing as a gun, because they can just make these things up at a whim, as you've seen they do all the time. Like, for example, there are people getting arrested now for not wearing masks and all this stuff, and there's no laws for it. So, I mean, how is that moral?
Mike?
That was a loaded question.
Well, you brought up guns, so of course it's.
I didn't even quite follow the question on that one.
Justin, can you try to make the question more succinct?
Well, I didn't really, not sure I asked the question, but anyway, the point that I was trying to make is a gun and government are two completely different things. A gun is used to project something. Now, it could be used for a bad purpose if you want, whereas the government, it can't really be used for a good purpose, because again, all it does is issue threats, many of which are completely immoral and unjustified. So again, like how can you compare a gun to government? You know what I mean? Like, government is basically an imaginary thing of like ideas that we base reality on, where a gun is like a tool that you can use. Like, you can't touch government, you can't hold the government. A gun you can hold and pick up and put in your pocket. Government is a philosophical idea, and a really bad one.
Okay, Mike, so it seems like the core of Justin's argument is that government initiates force, which isn't always done with a gun, which can be used in self-defense. So how do you justify the initiation of force on the behalf of government?
Only laws set forth in advance can be used to punish.
That's not true, because they didn't put the laws for the
opposite of
the mask wearing. They didn't put that into law, and they already acted on it. So what you said is provably untrue, just there.
Okay. So what about ostracizing people?
Those are small regulations. Yeah, of course they're going to be not perfect.
Well, why is that?
They're probably doing it for political reasons. They're doing it for political reasons. Either they're trying to win election or lose election.
And you're okay with that?
Everything in politics happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. That's not an argument.
If they have their incentives and constraints. The government is incentivized to give you what you want. Telling people what they want to hear is politics.
To be fair, we don't want to hear about a war on drugs. I mean, maybe in the 1980s, but the government, most of the people want cannabis legalized, and it's not. So what do you think?
Right.
How do you defend that, Mike? Is this not the will of the people to keep it banned?
That one's a difference of degree. If you legalize crack and Coca-Cola company started selling it, obviously the country's going to go down south.
Okay.
So that's why there's laws against drugs.
Okay, but then they put people in prison, right? So what do you both think about prison and its justification? Justin, do you think there's an alternative to locking people in a cage for violating an arbitrary law?
Sure, I think there's an alternative to pretty much everything. For the most part, I'd have to sit and think a little deeper into that. But yeah, I'd say there's pretty much an alternative to virtually anything. In terms of the prison system, we could totally do better than that. Again, just in case Mike doesn't know this, we have 75% of the world's prisoners and only about 5% of the entire world's populace. You don't seem to think that sounds remotely corrupt and evil, perhaps?
What do you think, Mike? How could we fix the prison problems?
Here's where that subjective morality comes in. Do you want government taking over prisons? Do you know how to rehabilitate people? Do you have money to rehabilitate these fucking animals? No. Just lock them up. If we knew how to rehabilitate them, that might work, but we don't know how.
What if we just ostracize them from the protection of the community? Justin, this is a common argument that I see in anarchist circles. Would you agree that it's better to just kick someone out of the community support and just say, hey, see you later, you can't come back anymore? That's what they did in the Wild Wild West.
Sure, and like I said, for example, let's say somebody didn't want to leave and the people didn't want to get violent. We could just completely ignore that person, any of the services that he would require until he had to leave. Until the person couldn't buy groceries or couldn't, and they would be forced to leave, and it wouldn't be violent. It would just be basically like, just ostracizing a person. Problem solved.
Do you see a problem with that, Mike?
Punishment? No. Well, it depends who's punishing who. Like taxes, theft. Who's stealing from who? It's all objective.
It's objective now. Did you mean subjective?
I mean, subjective. Sorry.
Okay,
Subjective.
no, that's fine. So do you think that instead of putting people in prison, we could just kick them out of the community? Then we wouldn't have the problem of prisons?
That's exactly what prison is. If you don't follow the laws of the city, then you are not. You break the laws of the city.
Mm-hmm.
You get locked up. That's just how it is. That's life.
Hold on, let me just say this.
Some things are.
Wait. How is it that then, based on what you just said, if let's say I break some type of laws and I get arrested, right, and then I flee, they'll come looking for me, won't they? So then that's not what you're saying. Like if I go leave after I committed a crime, they'll actually come look for me, bring me back to where I committed the crime, and then throw me into a cage. So that's not what you said.
And that may or may not cost more resources than it's actually worth in the end.
We weren't talking about that. We were talking about the morality of
everything lacks something.
Why would it cost more
some
resources
things are
to let
true
someone go?
That's a good
because
point,
they go out
actually.
and they're criminals. They're stealing shit. They're
Smoking weed.
raping people.
But isn't the government criminal because they steal our money through something they call taxation? I didn't want to pay that, but
what if you could opt out of taxation? Then maybe it wouldn't be theft.
Right. Then it would be moral because I would have a choice, wouldn't I?
Do you think everyone would opt out if taxes became voluntary, Mike?
Do I think everybody would opt in if the taxes were voluntary?
Well, let's say their default opted in. You have to opt out to not pay taxes. Do you think everyone would opt out? Or do you think 80-90% of the population would say, well, taxes are a social responsibility? What do you think?
I think you have equal rights, so you can't opt out and still gain the privileges of the economic benefit of a reliable framework of laws.
Yeah, so what if we could opt out of that too, right? What if we could opt out of taxes and live in a voluntary community? This was tested in the free state project. Everyone was moving to New Hampshire to start their own city, opt out of taxes, and have a voluntary society. Do you think that there's anything wrong with that idea? You know, it's like a mini state within the United States that we can do our own thing in.
There's no pleasure island like in Pinocchio.
Not yet.
Things are not free. Life.
Speaking of Pinocchio, is this guy a government puppet? Come on, God.
Go ahead, Mike.
You ever heard of Pinocchio's Pleasure Island?
Yes, Jordan Peterson talks about it.
There's no cops. Everything's free. It's a fantasy.
Sounds like it.
But what if we could make it a reality? Not maybe under the same standard, but Justin, have you ever heard of a startup society or a seastead?
I don't believe so. What's that?
A seastead is a voluntary community that lives on the ocean. So it's international. There's no international law. People can do whatever they want, really. It's an anarchist ideal. Or a startup society where people congregate together to live in a voluntary society away from being taxed and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's actually the story of Metal Gear Solid 5, believe it or not, actually. They have an anarchist society in the middle of Seychelles water, by Greece or whatever. But that's actually what happens in that game. But
wow.
Yeah, and the reason he started this is because the world's governments wouldn't allow him to do this or whatever. So
So he just did it.
he just did it, you know.
That's the spirit.
Yeah, I totally think it's possible. I would suggest that the only reason wars even exist is because of government. Because again, like if you look back, every single war, what war did not have the government involved in, and/or the church, which was the government of the time. You know, like for example, when was the last time any of the three of us started a war, or anybody you know started a war? You know, you have to have government in order to have a war. It wouldn't be organized otherwise. Therefore, the whole reason we have war is because of government in the first place.
Okay, Mike, do you think that ending government would end war and global conflict, or do you think it would lead to more of it somehow? What's your counter to that?
It'll lead to more. It is true that if everyone fought except on his own convictions, there would be no war. But that's a long shot.
Why is that a long shot? Take, for example, Mao Zedong in the early, like 100 years ago, whatever the fuck it was. He killed approximately, they say, about 80 million people. Now, without government, how could 80 million people be executed? Like, you and your friends going to get together and do that or something? How would that occur?
That's
80 million.
okay.
That's
Here's
a lot of
the answer to
people.
that.
Okay.
Here's the answer to that. If you want to change the economic system, you have to change the people. And that's what they're doing. They're manipulating people's emotions to change the economy. That's what Marx explained in his books.
I think he means the communist. Do you mean the communist or communists in general?
Yeah, you can't make economic changes until you change the people, and if you can't change the people, you kill them.
Oh,
that's because life doesn't ask what you want; it presents you with options.
It doesn't. Every time I go to order food, they ask what I want.
Yeah, and you pay for that food.
Right.
And that's why you get choice. Those who pay have the power. Those who pay have the power to choose.
But don't we pay into government through taxes?
And don't we have a choice in the government, or no?
Yeah. You see,
we do.
Taxation is a difference of degree. It could be, yeah, it's good if it's small and done for the right purpose. It's bad if it's too much and done for the wrong purpose. Then it becomes plunder, not theft. You know, we got to preserve these
you're talking
connotations of words.
So you said if it's small. So are you suggesting that if less people are involved, something immoral could be made moral depending on how many people are involved?
That's correct. Most differences that matter are differences of degree. Things that are true in part are not automatically true as a whole. That's a fallacy.
Okay.
Taxes theft is one of the biggest policies in the world because it lacks nuance.
So let me ask you, how many? Hold on.
Stealing with taxes?
How many people would I need to involve? How many people would I need to involve in a gangbang to make rape moral? How many would it take? 6 or 7, 208? How many?
It'll never be moral.
So then it doesn't matter how many people you're involved. Morality exists.
That's also the same thing as it depends on, again, that lacks nuance. It depends on the context. Gang raping somebody who murdered 50 children is perfectly fine.
Is it?
Gang raping somebody who's murdered 50 children is perfectly fine. But we don't have vigilante justice in this country. You want that? Move to fucking China.
Well, I would suggest that we do.
It depends it depends who's raping who. Depends who's raping who and for what reason.
Wait, so what's the so give me a reason where
rape
it would
the
be
shit
moral
out of
to rape someone. That would be moral. That would be moral. You're saying
say that person as revenge.
Revenge is moral.
It's not always. It's not. That's what I was saying earlier about the death penalty. It's not good or bad. That's why the Constitution is not specific on it. The Constitution is not specific on it. Not everything. So precision is a red herring. Precision's a red herring.
Yeah, you keep throwing terms
you
like,
could rape
red
a child
herring and nuance at me. Like, what's that?
What's wrong with raping or necklacing a child molester?
I wouldn't listen. I don't think it would.
There has to be a system of law. There has to be a system of law. They're called jurors, and they decide what is true because it's not objective.
Let me explain. Like
trial by jury.
Let's say like some child raper tried to rape a child, and somehow the child was able to fucking shank the guy in the throat and killed him. I would say that would be morally justified because the child rapist is breaking the kid's natural law and like natural rights to to like not be raped. You know what I mean? But like I wouldn't say let's say you went along and killed him. Would it be justified? I guess on some level, would it be the right thing to do? I don't necessarily know if it would be the right thing to do. I think maybe bringing him to justice would probably be a better idea. But at the same time, too, like, the point that I'm getting to more or less is that morality exists. You know what I mean? Like, you keep like going back and forth where like, well, in this scenario or this scenario, No, the truth is objective. Like, it's not like there is no such thing as my truth. There's my perception of what the truth is. But this whole my truth term needs to go away because it's not actually a real thing. There is just the truth, and it's our job to align our perspective with that objective truth. There is no my truth, you know. Anybody that believes in my truth, go jump off of the building and see if your truth doesn't make you fall. Good luck.
As I said earlier, everybody has their own truth.
No, they don't.
Because they're different people.
That doesn't matter. There's
people
still
are different.
One truth.
Their opinions, their perception.
All right.
So, okay.
The singular of there's truths from various people, and then there's the truth. That's why there is no truth, because everybody has their own truth.
Incorrect.
Everybody has their own truths, plural.
No, they have their perception of the truth. In every single person's truth, falling off of a building will kill them, at least if it's a decent enough height. Every single time, 100%. Therefore, it is objective, which is a foundation for understanding what the truth is. The truth exists. Just because you or I don't, like, for example, like these idiots that believe, what's it called, that there's no, that reality has no purpose. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know what the purpose of all of reality is, but to say that, you know, within reality that, like, my chair is for sitting, or like my car for driving, or pool tables for playing pool, everything has a purpose, but then you're going to tell me that all of reality has no purpose whatsoever? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Just because you and I don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose, you know?
Okay. Mike, what do you think in response?
Singular is different than as a whole. Everybody has their own perceptions, their own opinions, their own truths. That's why there is no truth.
No.
It all depends. It all depends. Truth is not objective.
Okay.
It's not.
Let's get back on track, because we don't want to turn this into a whole morality argument. Stick to government. Okay.
Okay, sure.
What do you guys think about just scientific tests need to happen in science, right? We want to test something as true, so we experiment with it. Why don't we experiment with different types of societies and different types of government to see which one works the most effectively? One of which can be self-government, one of which can be capitalism and cap and com. Let them all try it out, see which one works best on a smaller scale, then bring to the top whichever one is the most efficient. What do you think about that, Justin?
I think that's a great idea. Actually, I never heard that before, but that's a fantastic idea. I think we should implement that right now. So I'm with that completely.
What do you think, Mike?
Sorry, I missed the question. I was listening to Justin.
No, it's okay. What if we had small experiments, like in science, to see which types of government work best? So self-government, try it out. And cap, try it out. And com, try it out. Communism, flat up, try it out.
That's the brilliance of limited form government. America's a creation of thought. It's taken thousands of years to develop limited form government. You don't get rid of limited form government because of politicians. You know, it's.
What do you mean?
Actually, no. That's actually not what the truth is. Can I? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Justin.
First off, it didn't take thousands of years to come to where we are now in terms of government. What happened on this planet, like time immemorial, was that we were ruled over by the church with an iron fist. As humanity evolved and realized that, hey, we can't let these people abuse, enslave, and destroy our lives, humanity started to ask questions, and we started to come up in consciousness. So when the church started to realize, like, oh, hey, they're catching on to our fucking plan, what they did is they decided to, the church created kingship, which is why a pope's tiara is this big and a king's crown is like this big. So anyway, then after that, people started to realize, like, hey, we can't give the king all this power over us. We got to revolt. We got to start something. So then they just changed kingship into government, where it's all the same as it's always been, except now they're supposedly it goes through a couple of people, even though the same things have occurred for thousands of years. They just euphemize and trick you. Because, again, deep down, nobody really wants to admit that they're a slave, except a few of us like I do. I'm just a really bad slave. So it didn't take thousands of years to get to where we are now. Humanity has been fooled, duped for thousands of years. Fortunately, I'm just not one of them. Okay, Mike?
People form states for a reason. We used to have anarchy. And people form states.
When was that?
You know, limited government the concept of limited government is that it has no power in the beginning. It's empowered as well as restricted. by laws written in the Constitution that have developed over experience, not logic.
Okay, but they don't
America's
use
a
the
creation of
Constitution.
thought.
What isn't a creation of thought?
Also, did
So
those
Not one-
did those limitations really work? I mean, we have the biggest, most powerful government today.
And corrupt.
Everything works by sufficiently low standards and fails
What does
by
that mean?
sufficiently high standards.
Okay. Gotcha. So, all right. What do you think about the free market, guys? Do you think free market can solve the problems that government tries to solve with regulations? Because
Absolutely.
here, real quick, I want you both to listen to this thought experiment and see what you both have to say about it. So, back in the 60s, there was a car manufacturer that had a part on the car that cost $100 to make per car. So, they calculated how much it would be to put on each car and how many lives it would cost if they didn't put it on. And they calculated it would only cost 400 lives if they didn't put it on. That was cheaper than the price of the part, so they didn't put on the part, and 400 people died. Then the government came in and put on a regulation and said you have to actually put on this part regardless of profit. But that was retroactive. The free market at that point would have been like, well, fuck you guys, you're not putting on this part, so we're not going to purchase from you, and it reduces their power as a business. So,
Right.
Mike, do you think regulations were the key to ending that? Or Justin, do you think the free market would have handled it even more efficiently?
No,
I
that's
know
something free speech could have handled.
Oh, okay, Mike. So you don't think a regulation was important in that circumstance?
Not nowadays. It'll go viral. This car has a gas tank by the rear bumper. You'll die if you buy it.
Okay, so why do we need regulations for anything if that's the case?
Right.
You want to be breathing in soot from coal plants? You want to... There are external costs. Say...
Well, I'm drinking fluoridated water.
During the manufacturing process, there are byproducts of harmful waste that other people pay the cost.
Okay, but don't those corporations get by with government subsidy?
No, the government limits those things.
Oh,
That way
yeah.
other people don't have to pay with their life because they got cancer from breathing in a byproduct of energy creation.
All right, Justin, what do you think?
It's called an external cost because the people who are making those decisions, it's not part of their transaction. It's not economic. They're not. I don't know how to explain it.
I think your point is. I think what you're trying to say is that the regulations are not in favor of the business, and they wouldn't be there without government, right? You're saying you need the government to regulate those things. Otherwise, private corporations would just pollute as much as they can because it's cost effective, and regulations are the only way to limit that economic incentive. Is that your argument?
Not the only way. You never say never, but it's the most efficient way that we have. Mankind hasn't developed anything better.
Okay, that's why I think we should do this experiment idea is to find a better way. But Justin, what do you think about regulations and the free market and taking care of problems like pollution?
Well, first off, like, see, not to come off all like high-minded and stuff, but like, you can just go on YouTube and see people that like build engines and stuff that run on water and urine. There's countless human innovations that we come up with. Seriously, come up with every day. So like a question like that, I don't mean to come off like a prick or anything, but I'm in such a different place that like we don't even need stuff like that. Like we don't even need roads anymore with the technology that exists. You know what I mean? So it's like these problems could easily be solved. Yet for some reason, anytime one of these brilliant new inventions comes along, they never get put into play because government won't allow that. You know, why do you think we don't have cars that won't run on fucking water already? You don't think those things exist? Go on YouTube. There's like kids in like Haiti, like 8-year-olds making these engines. It's the government that prevents that. You know, so again, like the free market can easily solve every problem. The problem is that most people's imagination isn't there. They're too stuck by the government brainwashing. Think like, what can we do? I mean, we've teleported protons. We've sent the light photons like back in time. We clones people. Like to think that we can't figure out how to stop pollution is really, really kind of childish, if you ask me. No offense. Like I don't, I'm just saying like this is simple. The free market can do anything easily. It's the government that prevents this.
Okay, Mike.
The free market doesn't exist in a vacuum. Otherwise, they would just have no regulations. They would hide everything that's causing negative effects. It's not the duty of the government to determine what's best. It's the duty of the rulers.
That is the government.
And the people determine which rulers are best.
No, they don't.
The government is not a monolith. It's a fragmentary aggregation of decision makers.
So how is it that George
not a
Bush...
monolith? You can't say government is bad because some people are good and some people are bad. Some governments are good. Forms of government differ.
Is forcing your will on people ever a good thing? Can you make that moral, forcing your will on other people?
Forcing your will
on other people.
That's why everybody has a civic duty to vote for politicians to make those decisions.
That doesn't answer my question.
We don't have computer algorithms. We don't have computer algorithms that can make decisions. Only humans can make decisions, and those humans have to be chosen somehow. So not all decisions are individual or voluntary. Life sucks. It doesn't ask you what you want. You got choices. You got choices. You could either do this or you could do that. It doesn't just ask you what you want if you have a dollar bill.
Isaac, I got to wrap up soon. Is there anyone want to ask me anything? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I got guests over.
No, you're fine. Let's wrap it up with one last question. So, military defense, I don't think we got to that yet. Let's end there. Justin, we'll start with you. What if anarchy were to be in place and the people decided they wanted it? We start a small scale experiment. People like the idea. What would happen if there's no more government? Would you think that there would be a power vacuum that another powerful state tries to come in and stop our project with? Or maybe it would spread worldwide? What do you think about that?
No, absolutely not. Actually, the Prime Minister of China himself was quoted saying that they would never invade America. Not because of our army or anything like that, because there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass in this country because of how strapped and armed the United States is. So no, I would suggest that we could, again, what are they going to do? Like swim over here? No, it's not going to happen. No way.
Got it. Like guerrilla warfare kind of in the American Revolution, or not guerrilla warfare, but that kind of thing. Okay. Mike, what do you think? Do you think that's a fair statement?
Well, yeah, if you don't have a state, another state will swallow you. And the free, limited form government is our state. You don't get rid of limited form government because politicians that you've seen or you don't get rid of limited form government because you've seen too many police brutality videos or.
Okay, I have a solution for both of you, and then we'll wrap it up. So what we'll do is we'll start small-scale experiments on the best form of government, upsize it, change the entire world's perspective at once, because the external reflects the internal, flood the water supply with LSD, and prove to everyone that we can rule ourselves. What do you guys think? Does that sound like a good compromise?
It sounds a lot like what Kefka did in Final Fantasy
Ruling yourself in.
Yeah.
I love your video game references. What do you think, Mike? Can we just give everyone acid and call it a day? That's what I'm fine with that.
If that's how you want to rule yourself, that's fine. You could be a liberal. You could be a liberal and do that route. But we got two parties in this country. There's going to be conservatives who are not, in favor of that kind of thing.
Well, they're not going to have much of a choice because they won't know what's in their water until after they've drank it. So, okay, that wraps that up. Totally fun. That was great. Justin, thank you for participating. Mike, thanks for coming here to prove everyone that you're actually a real person.
He's a real person.
Yeah, you're a real person. So I appreciate the discussion, guys. Anything else left to add at the end?
Let's do this again when we have more time to prepare, I guess.
Sure. I'm down. By the way, next Friday at 7 p.m., I'm hosting another debate between Kyle Wagner who's a former anarchist and now libertarian for small government, and Jake McCulty, who's a pretty smart anarchist. So
yeah, I like Jake. Yeah, if you want me to, so let me know if you want me to do some stuff again.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks, guys. I'll see everyone here again next week at 7 on Friday, Eastern Standard Time, and we'll do another debate and see how far we go. So have a good night, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.